was. And like every quiet night, I have a story to share. You may subscribe for the nights ahead. Close your eyes and let the story begin. It begins with a sound, a low, humming string. Deep as the desert night, a drum answers, steady, heartbeat-like, echoing across the sand. Then the metallic clash of qraqeb, the iron castanet, sharp and bright like sparks in the dark. Voices rise, call and response, ancient and insistent. This is the sound of Gnawa music, a rhythm born from suffering, survival and spirit, carrying across centuries from Africa's heart to Morocco's soul. The story of Gnawa music is not written first in books, but in footsteps and chains. Its roots lie in the forced migration of West Africans, brought north across the Sahara centuries ago. They carried little with them, no possessions, no freedom, but they carried memory, they carried rhythm, they carried songs that spoke to spirit, to ancestors, to God. In Morocco, these communities, known as the Gnawa, wove their African heritage into the fabric of Islamic Sufi tradition. Their music became both prayer and medicine. It was not just for entertainment, it was for healing, for trance, for connection with the unseen. At the center of this tradition is the Guembri, three-string bass lute, its body carved from wood and stretched with camel skin. When its strings are plucked, the sound is both earthy and otherworldly, grounding yet expansive. Around its circle, the qraqeb, iron castanet, clashing in hypnotic rhythm, and the bud, a large drum that drives the beat like thunder, rolling in the distance. But Gnawa is more than instrument. It's ceremony. It's the lila, an all-night ritual where music guides participants into a trance, into healing, into communion with spirit. The songs invoke saints and ancestors, blending African animist tradition with Islamic devotion. The rhythms are repetitive, entrancing, designed not to end but to carry listeners deeper, layer by layer, until body and spirit move as one. To hear Gnawa is to hear history, pain and resilience, exile and belonging. It's to hear chains transformed into rhythm, sorrow into song, survival into celebration. And in Morocco, from the Medinas of Marrakesh to the fishing ports of Essaouira, the pulse of Gnawa still beats as alive today as it was centuries ago. Long before the name Gnawa was known in Morocco, there were footsteps, endless footsteps across burning sand. For centuries, caravans moved through the Sahara Desert, some carrying salt and gold, others carrying men, women, and children torn from their homes in West Africa. These were not journeys of choice, but of force, and the chains that bound them left echoes in memory that would last for generations. From the Sahel, from the lands around the Niger River, from kingdoms with their own music and rituals, people were brought north. They were taken into slavery in North Africa, into homes, farms, and armies. But though their freedom was stolen, their choices could not be silenced. The rhythms, drummed on skin, sang in chant, tapped in secret on wood and stone, became the thread that held their identity together. In Morocco, these communities slowly settled, forming brotherhoods that carried both their African root and their Islamic faith. Over time, they came to be known as the Gnawa. Their songs carried the memory of exile, but also the resilience of survival. The music became both a remembrance of where they had come from and a prayer for strength in the world where they now lived. Central to this heritage were the spiritual practices they carried with them. In West Africa, music was not just art, it was medicine, connection to the divine, a way to call spirit and heal the sick. That tradition traveled north with them, blending with Sufi Islam. It became something new, songs that called not only on ancestral spirit, but also on Islamic saint, merging two worlds into one continuous rhythm of devotion. The sound of chains turned into the clash of iron castanet. The cries of exile became chant of invocation. What had been lost became memory, and memory became ritual. Through music, the Gnawa created a space where suffering was not erased, but transformed, where the past lived in harmony with the present. This transformation gave the Gnawa community a unique role in Moroccan society, though they remained on the margins, often poor and overlooked. They carried a spiritual authority. Their rituals, the lila, the night-long ceremonies of healing, were sought by many. People came to them for relief from illness, for protection from misfortune, for connection with the divine. The Ma'allim, the master musician, became the guardian of this tradition. With his Guembri slung across his chest, he led the rhythms, the chants, the trance. He was more than a musician, he was a healer, storyteller, guide. His rule was passed down through generations, each Ma'allim apprenticed in both music and spirit. As Morocco changed, as cities grew and empires shifted, the Gnawa held onto their rhythms. They remained a living link between Africa's heart and Morocco's soul, between pain and healing, between the past and present. And so, from exile, a culture was born, from chains, a rhythm, from loss, a song. The roots of Gnawa music were planted in suffering, but they grew into resilience, into prayer, into celebration that still resounds today. Before there is a song, there is a sound, and in Gnawa music, that sound begins with the Guembri. It's more than an instrument, it's the heartbeat of the tradition. Carved from a single block of wood, its body hollowed and covered with camel skin, its three gut strings stretch from neck to base. When the Ma'allim plucks them, the sound is deep, pulsing, earthy. It's not the voice of polished concert halls, but of the desert, of old roads and ancient memory. The Guembri is bass and drum, melody and rhythm, a foundation on which the trance is built. The Guembri is held close, strapped across the shoulder, struck with the fingers in patterns that repeat like breathing. To outsiders, the sound may seem simple, But for those who know, each pattern is a code, an invocation. It can summon the energy of spirit, open the way for healing, guide dancers into a trance. Its sound is grounding, heavy like footsteps in the sand, steady like the beat of a heart. Around it, the qraqeb begin a metallic conversation. These iron castanets, shaped like long, heavy clappers, are struck in pairs. The sound is sharp, clanging, insistent, like iron against iron, like the memory of chains turned into music. Held by the dancers, the qraqeb create polyrhythms, layers of sound that clash and harmonize, filling the air with sparks of rhythm. They are both accompaniment and counterpoint, echoing the Guembri yet pushing against it, lifting the music higher. Then comes the tabl, a large double-headed drum carried on a strap around the waist. Beaten with heavy sticks, it provides thunder beneath the Guembri's heartbeat. The tabl announces the beginning of a procession, calls dancers into the circle, and marks the high point of the lila. Its boom shakes the ground, reminding everyone that trance is not only for the spirit, but also of the body. Together, these three, Guembri, qraqeb, and tabl, form the sacred triangle of Gnawa sound. They are not merely instruments, but vessels of memory. Each note recalls centuries of migration. Each rhythm layers African heritage with Moroccan devotion. The Guembri connects to the earth, its sound like root. The qraqeb speak of chains, transformed into freedom. The tabl carries thunder, reminding the body of its place in the ritual. Gnawa music is not instrument alone, it's also voice. The songs are chant, often repetitive, invoking names of prophet, of saint, of spirit. The Ma'allim calls, the chorus responds, creating a cycle that spirals deeper with each repetition. The words are simple. Their power lies in rhythm, in persistence, in the way they carry participants into trance. In a lila, these instruments and voices do not play songs as entertainment. They open doors. The Guembri leads, the qraqeb surround. The tabl drives, and the voices rise. One by one, participants into trance, dancing, swaying, spinning. Each rhythm corresponds to a particular spirit or energy. Each song a key to a hidden door. To outsiders, the music may sound hypnotic, endless, but for the Gnawa, it is structured, intentional, sacred. It's not performance, but invocation. The instruments are guides, carrying souls across thresholds, leading them from the everyday into the spiritual. And so the tools of Gnawa are not separate from their history. They are history, wood, skin, iron, and voice, all woven together into a tradition that remembers suffering, transforms it into rhythm, and offers it back as healing. The sun has set. The streets of the Medina grow quiet. Doors close, lamps flicker, and somewhere inside the courtyard, preparations begin. The lila, the heart of Gnawa tradition, is about to unfold. It begins not on stage, but in a circle. Mats are laid on the floor, incense burns. The scent of herbs and smoke filling the air. People gather, family, neighbors, seekers, the sick, the curious. Some come for healing, others for prayer, still others for the joy of music. But all know that what will happen tonight is more than entertainment. It's ceremony. At the center stands the Mu'allim, the master, his Guembri rest against his chest, its skin gleaming faintly in the lamplight. Around him are the players with qraqeb, their iron castanet, ready to clash, and the tabl, its drum head stretched tight. Women tie scarves around their waist. Dancers prepare their steps, and the air hums with anticipation. The first notes fall, slow, steady grounding. The Guembri's strings pulse like the first beat of a heart. The qraqeb answer with sharp, metallic rhythm, clashing in time, pushing the circle into motion. Voices rise, call and response, a language older than memory. The ceremony has begun. The Lila is not a single performance, but a journey. It can last through the night, hours upon hours of rhythm, song and movement. Each stage of the ceremony is dedicated to a different muluk, spiritual entities, saint or energies. Some are tied to Islamic figures, others to older African spirit. Each has its color, its rhythm, its song. As the ceremony unfolds, participants enter trance. The music does not rush, it repeats, circling back again and again, until repetition becomes transformation. The body begins to sway, then to move, then to spin. The mind loosens, the spirit opens. Scarves of different colors are handed to dancers, each matching the muluk being invoked. White for purity, green for fertility, blue for water, red for blood and passion, black for ancestral spirit. As dancers take these scarves, they embody the energies, their movement shifting with the rhythm of each spirit. The Mu'allim leads with precision. He knows the patterns, the songs, the order in which to call the spirit. His Guembri is not just music, but compass, guiding the ceremony forward. Around him, qraqeb players create an unending wall of rhythm, their metallic clash filling every space, their hands striking faster, harder, until the entire room vibrates with sound. For those outside the tradition, it may seem chaotic. Dancers in trance, rhythms overlapping, voices rising. But for the Gnawa, it is harmony. Each rhythm has purpose, each movement meaning. The Lila is both healing and worship, both medicine and prayer. It is said that during trance, participants release what burdens them: illness, grief, fear. The music carries it away, replacing it with clarity, strength, connection. Some fall to the ground, overcome by spirit. Others dance tirelessly for hours, eyes closed, faces calm. The circle holds them all, safe within the sound. As the night stretches on, the ceremony deepens. Songs shift from one spirit to another. Colors change. Rhythms transform. The Guembri continues without rest. The qraqeb clash endlessly. The drum thunders at the heart of it all. Hours pass, but within the circle, time dissolves. There's only rhythm, only breath, by trance. When dawn approaches, the Leela draws to a close. The last songs are sang, the last dancers bow their heads. The incense burns low, silence falls, sudden and heavy after so many hours of sound. The participants sit, breathing slowly, their bodies weary, their spirits cleansed. The Leela has ended, but its power lingers. For those who took part, healing has begun. For those who listen, the memory of rhythm will echo for days. The community, the night has reaffirmed the bonds between earth, spirit and song. The Leela is more than music, it's survival, it's memory, it's the sacred heart of Gnawa, beating strong through the night and into the dawn. For centuries, Gnawa lived on the edges of Moroccan society. There were healers, musicians, guardians of memory, yet they were also descendants of slaves. Their African root set them apart in a land shaped by Arab, Berber, and Andalusian influences. Their work was respected, but their place was fragile, always somewhere between reverence and marginalization. Families often called them to perform leelas when illness struck or when misfortune needed lifting. Their rituals were sought after, the music respected as powerful and necessary. Yet outside of those sacred nights, they were often overlooked, even dismissed as poor entertainers, performers for hire in markets or weddings. This duality defined their existence. In the day, they played for coins in the street. In the night, they guided spirit, healed the afflicted, and carried forward traditions older than Morocco itself. Their art was sacred, but it was also survival. For generations, recognition was slow to come. Morocco celebrated Andalusian orchestras, Sufi chants, Berber songs, but Gnawa music, tied to slavery and African origins, remained less honored, kept in the shadows. Yet the Gnawa endured, holding their ceremonies, teaching their apprentices, guarding the rhythms passed from master to master. The turning point began in the 20th century, when Moroccan society itself started to shift, as cities like Marrakesh and Essaouira became crossroads of culture. The hypnotic sound of the Guembri and the metallic clash of the qraqeb began to draw more attention. Travelers, scholars and musicians from abroad stumbled upon Gnawa rituals and were captivated. In the 1960s and 1970s, foreign musicians searching for root of rhythm in Africa found in Gnawa a treasure. Jazz players, blues guitarists and rock musicians recognized in its trance-like beats the same pulse that ran through their own traditions. For them, Gnawa was not marginal, but foundational, an echo of Africa's heartbeat. At the same time, Morocco itself began to reclaim Gnawa as part of its cultural wealth. Festivals, once reserved for classical or folk traditions, slowly opened their stages to the Ma'allims and their apprentices. What had once been played in hidden courtyards was now heard in public squares. Yet, even as recognition grew, the Gnawa never abandoned their root. For the Ma'allim, the Leela was still sacred, the Guembri still an instrument of healing, not only performance. To play outside of ritual was acceptable, but the heart of Gnawa was always spiritual. They balanced between worlds, the sacred and the public, the marginalized and the celebrated. By the end of the century, Gnawa music had stepped out of the shadows. The Essaouira Gnawa and World Music Festival, founded in the late 1990s, brought international audiences to witness the fusion of ancient rhythms with modern sounds. There, under the open sky by the Atlantic, Muallims played alongside jazz legends, rock bands, and global icons. The world applauded, and for the first time, the Gnawa was celebrated not just as remnant of slavery, but as carriers of a rich, living tradition. Recognition also came formally. In 2019, UNESCO inscribed Gnawa on its list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity, declaring it a treasure of world culture. It was an acknowledgement long overdue, a moment when the voices of the Gnawa, once silenced by chains, were finally honored as voices of humanity's shared memory. But even with global recognition, the heart of Gnawa remains where it always has been, in the lila, in the trance, in the hands of a Muallim plucking the Guembri under a darkened sky. The world may now listen, but the spirit, the ancestors, the rhythms, they have been listening all along. It began quietly. Foreign musicians, curious and searching, wandering the Medinas of Marrakesh or Sawira. They heard the low thrum of the Guembri, the metallic clash of the qraqeb, the hypnotic repetition of chants. At first, they were only listeners, wide-eyed and entranced. But soon, they wanted more. They wanted to play, to merge, to see what happened when two worlds of rhythm met. For centuries, Gnawa music had been the heartbeat of ceremonies, sacred and spiritual. But in the second half of the 20th century, it began to echo in new spaces, concert halls, jazz clubs, global festivals. What was once hidden in courtyards became part of a worldwide dialogue in sound. Jazz musicians were among the first to recognize the kingship. In the endless improvisations of jazz, they heard something familiar, the spirals of Gnawa rhythm. Both were built on call and response. Both relied on the pulse of repetition. Both would carry players and listeners into trance-like states. The Guembri's earthy bass spoke naturally to jazz bassist, while the qraqeb's metallic clash found kinship with the polyrhythms of African American percussions. In the 1960s and 70s, as Western musicians looked back to Africa for inspiration, Morocco became a destination. The Gnawa brotherhoods welcomed them, and the first collaborations were born. What emerged was not the dilution of tradition, but a new language: Gnawa jazz, Gnawa blues, Gnawa rock. By the late 20th century, collaborations became central to the global recognition of Gnawa. Artists like Randy Weston, the American jazz pianist, worked with Gnawa Muallims to explore the deep connections between African American jazz and African trance. Others followed: blues guitarists who heard in the Guembri's three strings the raw soul of the Delta, rock musicians who felt the power of trance mirrored in their own long, rolling drums. And then came the festivals, amazed Most famous of all, the Essaouira Gnawa and World Music Festival, founded in 1998. Each summer, the city's ancient walls and Atlantic winds became the backdrop for night where the world's music met Gnawa. Ma'allims shared the stage with jazz legends, reggae stars, flamenco dancers, and electronic DJs. The Guembri, once confined to sacred rituals, now pulls through amplifiers, resonating with thousands. The fusion was not without debate. Some purists worried that Gnawa's sacred root might be overshadowed by the glare of global stages, but many Ma'allims embraced the collaborations, seeing them not as dilution but as expansion. The heart of Gnawa, the lila, the healing, the spirit, remained intact in its sacred spaces. The stage was a different room, one where rhythm could travel further, touching people who had never heard of Morocco, never felt the desert's pulse. Today, the influence of Gnawa is unmistakable. Musicians across dance, jazz, blues, funk, hip-hop, electronic have drawn from its trance-like structures. Guembri's deep tones echo in bass lines worldwide. The qraqeb's metallic rhythms inspire drummers seeking polyrhythms. Even in electronic music, DJs sample Gnawa chants, layering them into beats that move crowds across continent. Yet, despite this global reach, the essence of Gnawa remains unchanged. At its core, it is still about healing, about spirit, about ancestors remembered through sound. The Ma'allim still leads ceremonies as his forefathers did. The Guembri is still carved by hand, still covered with camel skin, still played close to the chest like an extension of the body. Fusion has given Gnawa new life, but it hasn't erased its soul. It has shown the world what the Gnawa always knew, that rhythm has no borders, that music is memory, and that from the deepest pain can come the most unifying song. The city of Essaouira wakes to the sound of gulls and the crash of Atlantic waves. Its walls, withered by centuries of wind and salt, hold secret of traders, sailors, and exiles. But as the sun sets and lamps flicker in the Medina, another sound begins to rise. The thrum of the Guembri, the clash of qraqeb, the call of voices. This is modern-day Gnawa, alive and unbroken. In Morocco today, Gnawa lives in two parallel worlds. One is sacred, hidden in courtyards and brotherhood lodges, where the lila is still performed, as it was centuries ago. Families invite the Ma'allim to heal the sick, to cleanse the home, to connect with spirit. The ceremony lasts through the night. Scarves of color still mark the saint. Incense still burns. Dancers still enter trance. Here, Gnawa remains medicine, faith, continuity. The other world is public, the stage, festival, the global scene. Here, Ma'allims perform not only for spirit, but for audiences from around the world. Crowds gather in Marrakesh squares, in Essaouira's festival grounds, in concert halls from Paris to New York. They dance not in trance, but in celebration, moving to rhythms once reserved for healing. Both worlds coexist. The sacred is not diluted by the public. It continues in its own sphere. The public, meanwhile, has given Gnawa visibility, recognition, survival in a changing world. Younger generations who might once have turned away from ancestral traditions now embrace them proudly as part of Moroccan identity. Today's Ma'allams balance both roles. In the Lila, there are healers, guiding spirit and invoking ancestors. On stage, there are ambassadors, showing the world the richness of Gnawa rhythm. They carry the same Guembri, the same chant, the same discipline, but adapt their art to new spaces. Modern Gnawa also reflects Morocco's diversity. In the streets of Casablanca or Rabat, one can hear Gnawa blended with hip-hop, with electronic beats, with reggae. Young musicians experiment, adding electric bass alongside Guembri, synthesizers beside qraqeb. For some, this is fusion. For others, evolution. The heart of Gnawa beats on, even as its skin changes. The government, once indifferent, now recognizes Gnawa as cultural heritage. Schools and cultural centers teach its rhythms. UNESCO's designation in 2019 as intangible cultural heritage of humanity gave formal recognition to what the Gnawa always knew, that their tradition is not marginal, but essential. Still, at its deepest level, Gnawa belongs to the community, to the night of trance, to the families who gather in need. Tourists may hear it on stage. A traveler may buy a Guembri in the market, but the soul of Gnawa remains in the circle, in the repetition of chants that carry people into healing. Sawira remains its beating heart. Each summer, the city hosts the Gnawa and World Music Festival, where Ma'allams share stages with jazz pianists, reggae singers, flamenco dancers, and electronic DJs. For 4 days, the Medina becomes a meeting of worlds, ancient rhythms mingling with modern sounds, the Guembri vibrating against Atlantic winds. And yet, when the festival ends and the tourists leave, Gnawa does not disappear. It returns to the courtyards, to the lilas, to the everyday lives of the brotherhoods. It remains as it always was, music of memory, music of spirit, music of healing. Modern day Gnawa stands at a crossroads of past and present. It honors its roots in exile, while embracing its place in the global stage. It remains sacred while becoming celebrated. It is Morocco's gift to the world, and Africa's echo carried across centuries. The circle closes where it began, with rhythm. The Guembri thumps steadily. The qraqeb clash in unison. Voices rise and fall in call and response. It's the same sound that once carried through desert, the same rhythm that healed the broken, the same music that survived exile and chains. Today it plays not only in Moroccan courtyards, but on world stages, in recordings, in headphones carried across oceans. The legacy of Gnawa is both ancient and alive. Its story is one of transformation. What began in suffering became song. What was once the sound of bondage became the sound of freedom. Chains were turned into instrument, grief into rhythm, exile into community. Few traditions embody so clearly the power of music to carry memory, to heal wounds, to turn history's weight into living art. The legacy of Gnawa lies not only in its survival, but in its universality. Though deeply rooted in Morocco and Africa, its rhythms resonate with anyone who listens. The Guembri's deep pulse speaks to the human heart itself. The qraqeb's metallic clash mirrors the persistence of struggle. The chants, though in languages unfamiliar to many, touch something beyond words, the longing for connection, for healing, for transcendence. Around the world, musicians continue to draw inspiration from Gnawa. Jazz, blues, reggae, electronic, rock, all have found kinship with its entrance, with its trance-like structure. The Asawira festival has become a symbol of dialogue between cultures, proving that music is a language beyond borders. In every fusion, Gnawa's core remains intact, repetition as transformation, rhythm as prayer. But the truest legacy is still found in the lila, in the courtyard. Incense burns, scarves of color are laid out. Alam plaques the Guembri, and the night fills with rhythm. Dancers enter trance, spirits are invoked, healing is sought. This ritual, unchanged in its essence for centuries, reminds us that at its heart, Gnawa is not performance, it is devotion. To reflect on Gnawa is to reflect on the resilience of humanity itself. Out of exile came belonging, out of marginalization came recognition, out of chains came music that moves the world. It's a reminder that the deepest wounds can give birth to the deepest songs, and that memory, when carried with rhythm, can outlast history itself. As the last note of the Guembri fade, the silence that follows is not empty, it's full. Full of ancestors remembered, of spirits honored, of centuries carried forward in sound. The Gnawa have given the world a gift, not only music to listen to, but a way of remembering, a way of healing, a way of belonging. This was Hypnos. Another story has been told, and now it's time to rest. Good night.